Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's ECA Learning Zone webinar, all about TM66 and the circular economy with Ovia. That's part of the Scolmore Group. And from Scolmore today, representing Ovia, of course, we've got your presenters, Jake Green and Tim Benstead, once again joining us. Just before I hand over to Jake and Tim, you should be able to see a question mark on your screen. Do please make use of that throughout the presentation to submit your questions at any point, and we'll get to as many of those as we can at the end. Today's webinar is being recorded, and a full replay will be available on our YouTube channel. That's at youtube.com/ECA Live. As ECA members, you'll have access to our full suite of technical guidance notes, contracts, and much more on the members area of the website, so do remember to check that out for our frequent updates. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Over to you, Jake.
Thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate it. Welcome back to those that have joined us, myself and Tim, beforehand. We do appreciate you coming back and listening to us again. I know sometimes we may waffle on a little bit, but you know, it's all good stuff in the end as well. Part of Ovia's journey is to really become well versed in TM66 and primarily be one of the market leaders when it comes to a circular economy. It is a relatively new subject, and I know it's been around for a little while, but there's not too many people talking about it at the moment in terms of where it should be or how it should look, etc. So hopefully today what we can do is just shed a little bit of light on where we see it going and how Ovia are sort of representing TM66. Tim will be probably doing most of the talking, but I'll chip in as and when and just sort of really go from there. Like Omar said, if you have any questions, please put them in. If there's something that we can't answer today, we'll let you know, but we will take the details, or we'll get the details from Omar and pass the answers back to you in that sense. So hopefully it's of use for you today. So TM66 and Tim, really creating a circular economy, we need to sort of branch out a little bit in terms of a few different definitions as well, don't we, in terms of what a circular economy is and how it's really affecting the lighting industry.
Yeah, that's right, Jake. It's recognised that our current model of how it is that not just within lighting, but across the whole of our industry, the current model is to, in effect, extract resource, create the product, you know, design and create the product, distribute it, use it, and then effectively dispose of it. And of course, within that, you've got the WE directive and you've got so many other bits and pieces that sit there. But we generate currently vast amounts of waste product, and so effectively we can think of this as a take, make, use, shred sort of model. It just goes in at one end, out at the other, and the model is purely linear, and there's phenomenal amounts of waste that are generated, and we don't do anything with it. Now, within that setting, it's clear that that is unsustainable within the environment in which we now operate. It rightly, we have to think much more carefully about the resources that the world has and how we extract them and how we make use of them, and start asking ourselves really quite deep questions about how do we reuse, how do we remake those resources that we've already extracted long before we've ever shoved them out the window and dumped them on the scrap heap. And it's in that area that we need to think most carefully.
Yeah, so electronic waste has increased then 47%, whilst the population has only grown within 2010 to 2018. As you mentioned there, Tim, it's sort of unsustainable. Whilst we're talking about circular economy, it goes hand in hand with sustainability as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, the things are directly linked. It's the whole reason why we're talking about the circular economy and why CIBSE produced the guide TM66. And of course, it's a very useful guide. It's written by industry experts. LIA are engaged with it, obviously folks at CIBSE as well, and so it's got real credibility associated with it, and with its associated TM65, which deals with, shall we say, a low carbon economy, and looking at how we assess the carbon content within products and the longevity associated with those products.
So then, a circular economy model. This is somewhat, well, you know, what it looks like. We've mentioned, Tim, that sharing, leasing, reusing, repairing, refurbishing, and recycling, and we can see it that we basically need to be a big part of that, and we need to work out at what point can we do some of those. Not saying that we need to do every single piece of that, Tim. It's more a case of that we need to understand that we can't keep making, taking, and then shredding at that point. We have to, or using, then shredding. We have to look at this as a whole, and then that circular economy that we can see on the screen there, we will need to take at some point some actions to at least do some of that, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I can give a for example if you want. So,
please,
if you think about a product that has LED, which most lighting now is LED, isn't it, in that sense? But assume it has a certain output, and over time that output will diminish. There are very real technical reasons why that's the case. But is that not an opportunity then to say, well, it's not working for us now at the moment with its light levels, but we can take these and use them where we expect a lower light level, not necessarily the whole fitting, but the LEDs. So the issues around reuse or repurposing allows us to at least think about that as part of the design process before it then gets shredded at some point in the future. So the critical element here, I mean, certainly, you know, on the left-hand side of the screen there, it talks about, you know, are we able to share, to lease, to reuse? All of those things are linked to the circular economy. But the critical area is it for the designer, and the designer of the luminaire to think about, for example, if a luminaire fails, make it easy to repair, make it a quick fix rather than it's quicker and cheaper to just dump and replace. And it's in thinking about those things that we get a better outcome in terms of the circular economy.
I think you sort of hit a very good point there, Tim, when you said about that we look at light fittings and it's cheaper to replace them than it is just to repair them. Is that something that, well, I guess I'll probably answer my own question here. I guess something that we need to take on board is that we need to have these spares available should it be a small component that needs to be replaced. Is there also going to be an element of upskilling for contractors and people that are actually installing light fittings, do you think?
I think it's not necessarily upskilling. I think the people that install them are competent enough. I think it's making them aware that there is a quick fix that is price reasonable rather than replacing the whole luminaire. And I think responsibility does lie with us as manufacturers and designers of those luminaires. But it's also, if you like, if we think about specifiers and others that act as the drivers to manufacturers saying, we want you to engage with this process, then as manufacturers, of course, you're going to engage with the process, aren't you?
Yeah, indeed. And the other thing that you mentioned there as well was about shifting light around and into places that doesn't necessarily need a significant amount of light when they drop. Again, I think that's going to be a shift in people's thought process, because you know, we do, obviously at Ovia here, we do lots of lighting designs, and it always seems to come back and say we need a higher output.
Yeah, I mean, and that's interesting, isn't it? It's part of that, I suppose, is to get, shall we say, specifiers, contractors and others that come to us, to Ovia as a manufacturer and say, we want this, we want. So for it, it's almost asking themselves the questions, for what purpose? There's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting lighting that provides an aesthetic effect that looks good, that actually delivers not only on light output, but also on the whole aesthetic of a premises, of a building, of a warehouse, whatever it happens to be, that is a good thing and a right thing. And as designers, we want to engage with that. That's absolutely right and proper. But simply saying, can we have more output, is only really a part of the problem. That's to do with minimizing the number of LEDs associated with the luminaire itself, isn't it? What we're wanting is that, plus how do we then reuse, remake, repurpose when we need to, or how do we make it a quick and easy, shall we say, plug and repair, plug and clip, or whatever, unplug, replug, repair, that's easily done, that still doesn't diminish the output of the luminaire. It's asking a lot of questions around a lot of areas.
It's interesting. We've had a question already, and I don't mind answering them as we go along. Somebody said, I asked a manufacturer via a wholesaler to get me a quote to replace a driver for a 600 by 600 panel. It was pretty much the same price as a new fitting with a driver.
Yeah.
Again, I think, you know, when we just mentioned it there, you raise a good point. It's down to us as manufacturers to sort of take this on the chin and say, well, actually, we need to hold this stock here as well so that we don't have to replace the whole fitting with the driver. And obviously we as Ovia can't specify how much somebody charges for a set piece of equipment, but we can make it easier, that's for sure. And I think this is what it's all about today, is that we are in talks with wholesalers, etc., in making things like this more accessible than you've probably seen before as well.
It's a good question from Robert there, you know, or not a question, a good point that he raises, and it highlights, you know, much of what we've been saying, that again, as you say, Jake, as manufacturers, we've got to engage with this and make it, as part of the design, easy to repair and cost effective to repair, because there's clearly people out there that want to do that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, is it that people want to do that, or they also feel that it's unnecessary to replace the whole fit? It may take them longer to replace that whole fitting than just that one component. It is a very simple switch from driver. I remember, I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I do remember when I was doing a lot of lighting refit projects, and that, you know, trying to actually find the drivers and the ballast. This is way back before I was in manufacturing, but trying to actually find exactly the same driver doing the same thing was really difficult. It wasn't easy to find. So I do feel your pain there, Robert.
Yeah.
So then TM66, what is it? Where does it come from? Believe it or not, it was 2021, Tim. So it's been around for a while now, and I think people are finally sort of, it's filtering down, let's say. Yeah,
and I think that's right, Jake. Filtering down is right. I mean, that's relatively recent when we think about it. You're looking at 2 or 3 years, and for any manufacturer, and for you know, speaking for Ovia, it's not a straightforward thing to suddenly start thinking like this.
No.
And that takes a change in mindset, doesn't it? But what TM66 is effectively just a guide. It's a guide to designers and manufacturers to engage with how we create a circular economy for luminaires. And as part of that guide that's available via the CIBSE website, there's also a couple of spreadsheets, and they allow manufacturers and specifiers to actually start calculating a score associated with how engaged a particular luminaire is with the guidance that's provided in TM66, and that's actually certifiable with the LIA, and you certificate and log it with them, and it's recorded, and it provides then a nice reference of how far you've traveled and how far you've still got to go. I think that's the whole point about TM66.
I think it also gives a good benchmark. We'll come on to the scoring systems of how it comes about shortly. But I think it's, like you say, it's, you know, I don't think anybody's expecting every single fitting to be, you know, at a level where it's completely under this TM66 and it passes every single thing. I don't think that's what the guide is sort of pushing. I think what it is talking about is people need to start waking up and taking notes of one, TM66, and the second of how these products are being used. Because as manufacturers, you know, we produce products that the market sort of demands.
Yeah.
And from that point there, we go, okay, we can make this product, here you go. But also it's a little bit of responsibility back on us as well, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing, Tim, this is really the slogan of TM66: make, use, reuse, remake, and recycle.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the way that you need to start thinking, both as specifiers, contractors, and for us as manufacturers to engage with that. And it shall we say, it pings a number of the sectors that we deal with. It's clients, it's product designers, it's manufacturers. You look at all of those areas, wholesalers, how it is you deliver things, how it is you move things around. All of that is part of this whole cycle, or the holistic thinking around the whole of the cycle. You know, electrical estimators, quantity surveyors, all of them, when you're dealing with lighting, have to be thinking in these terms.
And by terms, you mean these?
Yes, yes. So as it says on there, designers to purposefully. So it's that purposefully. It's the thinking about it as part of the whole nature of the design. To think about, yes, meeting the user's needs. That's absolutely essential. It's pointless, as you would recognise, Jake. What's the point in putting something on the market that nobody buys? You know, it's all well and good wearing a hair shirt, but if a company goes out of business because of that, then it's not helping anybody, and it certainly doesn't help the manufacturer's bottom line. So yes, it has to meet the user's needs, but it needs to operate a system whereby the resources, manufacturing, distribution, use, and reuse of components are given due account. That's, if we can get there in the relatively short to medium term, we'll have done well. And then you sort of start, because you've changed the mindset, both of specifiers and manufacturers and those that extract the resources, then you can start thinking about it progressing. I think that's the way it works. And there are clear examples. You know, if you're looking at use and reuse, I've already sort of touched on that with regard to, can you repurpose a luminaire? You know, even if it's just down to taking one out from where it was used for a high-end thing, but if it works in a caretaker's office or a workshop and it works just as well, just looks a bit flash, then what's the problem? Although as a manufacturer, we'd like to sell you something that meets that, certainly meets that need.
No, that defeats the object, Tim. Come on. So I guess really then the key question is, how do we sort of retain the maximum value of that luminaire? I mean, you just touched on that point there with repurposing it to caretakers, but we also need to keep its functional value for as long as possible as well.
Yeah. I mean, you raise a fantastic point, Jake. I think that's absolutely critical. If we can keep these luminaires working for longer, then inherently we're meeting at least some of the elements of the circular economy. We're not just simply going, well, it's no longer purposed for here, let's stick it on the landfill, or, you know, follow the WE directive, strip it down. But here's the problem: the minute we start stripping it out, those products become low value. We're not retaining value within the luminaire itself. You know, how much do you get back in effect by stripping out of the LEDs? Well, you sort of don't, do you?
No.
So it goes from it's worth so much to nothing, and it's just become a cost to get rid of it. And we need to be thinking a bit better in that area. It's interesting. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Just to get the thinking shifted. You know, when I was reading this, it does make you stop and think, and that's a good thing. Certainly, when I've been researching this, it's a whole like I say, relatively new area, and it just makes you start thinking. Certainly, Ovia design folks have really engaged with this. So this is not, whilst it remains relatively new, the design guys at Ovia really are engaged with this.
Indeed, indeed. So this is, and I know, I appreciate that the wording is quite small, but we wanted to give you just sort of a feel really of what the assessment looks like. So the circular economy assessment method, and it forms two spreadsheets, a make and a specify. And it looks something like this. So the guys that are doing the product design for us at Ovia are going through this process. Now, if you are looking for a particular fitting that we do, the best way to go about it is to look for an Inceptor product. Those products in particular have been through this assessment, and that's where we have to really sort of start as a business, is with some products, make them better, and then look at the other ones that we do. There's no way on earth we could go through all of the SKUs that we've got and sort of just go overnight, just switch it and go through all this assessment. It's a huge undertaking, and I think certainly for other manufacturers it will be the same sort of caveat. So this is the process. We fill this form out, and then it comes out the end of it, and it talks about the scoring.
Yeah.
So it really goes from 0 to 4.
Yeah.
And we have to provide all of this evidence. Sorry, go on, Tim.
No, sorry, Jake. Sorry for interrupting there. And it gives you gradation within it. So whilst this is, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, it doesn't suddenly go from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3. It might be 2.4 or 1.6, or there's a wee bit of variation in that, and it allows for a sense of it'd be a real shame, for example, if a manufacturer put an awful lot of effort in simply to go from 2 to 2, even though he's gone from 2.1 to 2.6. And so within the CEAM scoring system, there is gradation, and it allows manufacturers to say, well, we're here now, we're designing now, we're making, it might be, for example, I mean, I know that we're up in certain products up to about a 2.5, aren't we, Jake?
We are indeed, yeah.
We can provide, therefore, we can say very definitely that there is positive evidence associated with what we've done in terms of design elements and attributes, and they've been incorporated into the product or service offered as part of that process. And so there's a positivity, there's a forward-thinking approach to that. And so of course, going down the line, the guys from Ovia would be looking to say, how can we improve this to move it up towards a 3? And then think about things progressing in the future. So the scoring system is not whilst there's an element of self-application, because it then goes to the LIA and what have you, then the scores can be trusted, I think is a reasonable thing to say. But it does specify as a clear guide as to what manufacturers are doing.
Here's a question then for you.
Don't make it a hard one.
So we've seen when it comes to appliances that they have changed their grading system. So that things used to be energy efficient to rated A++, etc.
Yeah.
And they've recently changed it. So what was an A++ maybe a C or D now. Would you ever see this sort of happening, Tim? What were your thoughts on that? Again, it's just an open question.
Yeah, interesting question. I've not thought of it, to be honest, Jake, but it's an interesting point. I think if we treat this as the starter for 10, and that at some point in the not too distant future, what will happen with CIBSE and LIA and others engaged with this, they'll go, how is it working? How many manufacturers are actually engaging with this? How are specifiers engaging with it? And they absolutely are. So, specifiers are requiring, or some specifiers are requiring manufacturers to engage with this and achieve certain scores. So I think it will be progressive, Jake. So I think whilst at the moment the scores are the scores, and it's unlikely even the next time around they'll change that. They certainly may well add some tweaks, but that's only, just sticking a finger in the breeze and seeing which way it's blowing. But all of these guides that CIBSE do undergo review every so often. It's just that this is very new, so it's too early for a review until they start getting some feedback. And And as you well know, all the manufacturers, all reputable manufacturers, will be engaged with the LIA as being members of it. Certainly, we are in Ovia, and so we engage with that whole process positively to try and move things on.
Now, I'm not going to sort of beat on too much about this, but as Tim mentioned, this is one of our new downlights that have been through the circularity test from TM66, and it's, I'm just reading off a note here, including the new milli inceptor being assessed using this model, and currently sits in the range of 1.5 to 2.5, which again is a great starting point, and it's something that we're working on in the background to make sure that we are, you know, as we sell more of these, the next batch of products that are coming through it may have some tweaks to it to, you know, the materials may change slightly, just so that we can raise the bar when it comes to this TM66.
And you'll notice on there, Jake, it's got the stamp of the circularity stamp from the LIA. So you definitely have engaged with the process.
And I'm sure they'd be pretty quick to tell us that we can't use it if it wasn't if it hadn't gone through.
I don't think we'd dare try not to comply with it.
So as we said, then, go on.
Sorry, Jake. I was just saying this would be this is an example, shall we say, of the certificate that would be issued. Again, it's more down to just showing rather than doing anything. I think this one sits at around about 2. If you got closer, but I realise people won't be able to see it. But for this product, this is rated as a 2.
I'm just going to put my cursor. There's the score. If you can see my cursor, it's on the basically slap bang in the middle of the page. It does tell you the score there.
I'm just looking at my screen. Yeah, it's a 2. It comes out as a 2. So in terms of I can't see that. I can't see that. Even I can't see it. But in terms of that particular lighting product, that single luminaire has a rating of 2, and so the next bit would be then to start moving up the 2.1, 2.2 as further developments occur.
So then the next steps, certainly from our side of things, is that we are very much committed to improving our products, certainly, and spreading the message to get people engaged with TM66, and, you know, really showing people the benefits of improving light fittings, as Tim's mentioned, reusing them, repurposing them, etc. And really, I think the main crux of the matter is that we need to change people's thinking. We do need to change people's thinking, Tim, certainly.
I mean, this, if you like, is our first foray into education, isn't it? I'm sure that some of those that are listening in and that will listen in the future will know an awful lot about it, perhaps already. But there'll be plenty of others that don't, and so actually engaging with the conversation is part of that education process, isn't it? As well as the changing in thinking process, and so within TM66, these are all points that have been highlighted by CIBSE themselves, and so this is not us saying, you know, this is our whole thinking. This is very much linked into what TM66 says about itself and about the whole process of the circular economy. We are in the early days of it, but certainly, shall we say, this conversation needs to continue. Resources are clearly finite, and we need to do better.
Indeed. So if anybody's got any questions, we'll happily take any. I know that we answered that one throughout. If you need any more information, you want to chat to us outside of this, then by all means get in contact with us. We can sort of have a conversation. We're more than happy to come and chat to your teams, etc. Obviously, if that's okay with Omar, then we'll be happy to do that.
Absolutely. Thank you once again to Jake and Tim for hosting this webinar, and thanks to the members who joined us this evening to watch. If you are watching the replay and have any questions that weren't answered today, do drop an email to the address that will be in the description for this YouTube video. We'll get back to you. And that's it from us. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, guys.